The atmosphere inside Buckingham Palace reportedly shifted long before the public noticed anything unusual. According to whispers circulating through aristocratic circles, the real tension began after several senior aides quietly raised concerns about how informal relationships around the palace were beginning to evolve into something far more influential. What once appeared harmless, social familiarity slowly started attracting attention from officials responsible for maintaining royal protocol. Sources close to palace administration claimed that Prince William had grown increasingly uneasy with the idea that unofficial figures were moving too comfortably within royal spaces. To him, the issue was never simply about one family member or one awkward misunderstanding. It was about protecting the future credibility of the monarchy itself. After years of public controversy surrounding royal relationships, interviews, and internal family disputes, William allegedly believed the institution could no longer afford another situation where blurred boundaries weakened public trust. The concern reportedly intensified during a series of private gatherings where certain individuals connected to Camilla's wider family appeared with growing frequency. Palace insiders claimed these appearances were beginning to create uncomfortable conversations among senior staff. Some reportedly feared that proximity to the Queen Consort's personal circle was slowly being mistaken for institutional authority. Within the royal household, perception has always mattered almost as much as reality. Even a small appearance at private functions, exclusive dinners, or restricted palace events can trigger anxiety if it creates the impression of unofficial influence. Senior courtiers allegedly worried that the monarchy risked looking less like a constitutional institution and more like a private social network operating behind royal walls. Prince William, according to insiders familiar with the mood inside the palace, reacted strongly once these concerns reached his attention. Those close to the future king reportedly described him as deeply frustrated by anything that threatened the discipline Queen Elizabeth II spent decades protecting. William is said to believe that the survival of the monarchy depends not on popularity alone, but on visible restraint, structure, and boundaries. This growing concern reportedly led to several tense internal discussions involving senior palace officials and trusted members of the royal family. Princess Anne allegedly played a significant role during these conversations. Unlike more publicly emotional members of the monarchy, Anne has long been known for approaching royal matters with cold practicality. Palace insiders often describe her as someone who values duty above personal comfort. According to speculation inside royal circles, Anne viewed the situation through the lens of institutional survival rather than family sensitivity. To her, unofficial access carried potential risks that could eventually damage the crown's authority. Reports suggest she believed even small exceptions could slowly evolve into dangerous precedents if left unchallenged. The turning point allegedly arrived after palace staff completed an internal review connected to guest access, scheduling procedures, and private royal gatherings. While no official details were ever released publicly, whispers from within Buckingham Palace suggested the findings raised enough concern to trigger immediate action. Suddenly, long-standing assumptions appeared to vanish overnight. According to insiders, security procedures were tightened almost immediately. Access permissions connected to specific palace areas reportedly changed without warning. Invitations that had once arrived regularly allegedly stopped appearing. Administrative staff were said to receive updated instructions, reinforcing that royal access should never be interpreted as a personal privilege tied to marriage or family closeness. What made the situation particularly striking was the silence surrounding it. There were no dramatic announcements, no public accusations, and no visible confrontations. Instead, palace officials allegedly handled everything with quiet efficiency. Inside royal institutions, silence often communicates far more powerfully than public statements ever could. For many observers inside aristocratic circles, the message became painfully clear. Prince William was preparing for a future monarchy built around stricter control and fewer emotional exceptions. Sources claimed Camilla's side of the family was deeply unsettled by how quickly the atmosphere changed. Some reportedly believed King Charles would eventually soften the response. Others expected the issue to disappear quietly through traditional royal discretion. But according to palace whispers, this time discretion did not mean forgiveness. It meant containment. Royal commentators allegedly began comparing the situation to a modern form of institutional distancing. Not public exile, not official disgrace, but something quieter, and perhaps even colder. Access disappears. Invitations stop. Doors that once opened freely suddenly require explanation. Inside Buckingham Palace, these changes are rarely accidental. Princess Anne's reported support only strengthened William's position further. Her approval reportedly convinced many palace insiders that this was not simply frustration from a future king. It represented a wider shift inside the monarchy itself. Observers close to royal affairs claimed the palace was entering a new phase, one shaped less by emotional flexibility and more by disciplined control. The monarchy, after surviving years of damaging headlines and family conflict, appeared determined to reinforce its boundaries before another internal crisis could emerge. For Prince William, according to speculation from royal insiders, the issue was never personal revenge. It was institutional protection. He allegedly feared that allowing unofficial networks to grow around the crown could eventually weaken public confidence in the monarchy's legitimacy. And after witnessing the damage caused by previous royal controversies, he reportedly had little patience left for risks that could grow quietly behind palace walls. The entire situation also highlighted the growing influence of Princess Anne inside the modern royal structure. Many insiders believe Anne now serves as one of the monarchy's strongest guardians of discipline and continuity. Her support reportedly gave William's decisions greater moral authority within palace circles. As these tensions unfolded behind closed doors, one reality became increasingly obvious. The future monarchy Prince William appears to envision may be far stricter than the institution the public once knew. While Buckingham Palace maintained complete silence publicly, reports from royal insiders suggest that the private fallout surrounding the controversy became increasingly severe behind closed doors. What initially appeared to be a limited administrative adjustment allegedly evolved into a much larger power struggle about the future identity of the monarchy itself. According to palace whispers, Prince William had become convinced that modern royal survival depended on reducing every form of unofficial influence surrounding the crown. After years of scandals, televised accusations, leaked private conversations, and global media controversies, William reportedly believed the institution could no longer operate through emotional compromise. Those familiar with discussions inside royal circles claimed the future king viewed discipline as the monarchy's last real protection. This philosophy reportedly placed him increasingly in alignment with Princess Anne. Anne has long carried a reputation inside palace walls for strict loyalty to institutional rules. Unlike royals who focus heavily on public image or popularity, Anne is often described by insiders as someone who prioritizes structure, order, and responsibility above all else. According to speculation within aristocratic circles, Anne allegedly warned senior officials that familiarity around the palace could easily become dangerous if not carefully controlled. In royal life, even social closeness can create perceptions of influence, favoritism, or unofficial power, and inside Buckingham Palace, perception alone can create crisis. Reports suggested. William grew particularly alarmed by the possibility that palace relationships could eventually be interpreted by the public as a form of hidden privilege. The monarchy, according to insiders, had already suffered enormous reputational damage from previous family conflicts. Another controversy involving unofficial influence could deepen public distrust even further. That fear reportedly pushed William toward a far colder leadership style. Several royal commentators began describing him as increasingly determined to separate personal emotion from institutional decision-making. To William, the crown allegedly could not survive if private loyalties continuously interfered with public responsibility. Sources close to palace operations claimed this mindset directly shaped the response to concerns surrounding Camilla's extended family connections. Internal reviews allegedly uncovered patterns of access that made senior staff uncomfortable. Nothing dramatic on its own, according to whispers, but enough small incidents to create concern among officials responsible for royal security and protocol. A familiar face appearing too often, private introductions happening repeatedly, social invitations quietly expanding into sensitive royal environments. None of these actions necessarily violated official rules. Yet together, insiders claimed they created the impression of growing informal influence operating near the center of royal power. For William, that perception itself reportedly became unacceptable. According to palace speculation, he feared the monarchy risked appearing vulnerable to personal networks rather than constitutional structure. And after observing years of public turmoils surrounding royal family disputes, he allegedly saw strict enforcement as necessary for long-term survival. The response that followed reportedly stunned many within Camilla's social circle. Administrative restrictions appeared quickly. Access policies tightened. Guest approvals became more selective. Long-standing assumptions regarding palace familiarity reportedly disappeared almost overnight. What shocked observers most was not the harshness of the measures themselves, but the calm efficiency behind them. Buckingham Palace did not need public confrontation to communicate authority. A revised guest list, a cancelled invitation, or restricted scheduling access could send an unmistakable message without a single public word being spoken. Sources claimed several aristocratic figures close to Camilla privately interpreted the changes as humiliations disguised through procedure. Within elite royal circles, exclusion often carries more emotional weight than open criticism. Everyone notices. No one speaks about it openly. That silence becomes part of the punishment. According to palace insiders, King Charles reportedly found himself trapped in an extremely difficult position throughout the situation. On one side stood loyalty to his wife and her personal distress. On the other stood growing pressure from William and Anne to protect institutional discipline at all costs. Observers claimed Charles appeared increasingly isolated by the conflict. His reign had already been overshadowed by health concerns, constitutional pressure, and the enormous challenge of following Queen Elizabeth II. Now he allegedly faced another painful reality. The monarchy's future direction was increasingly being shaped by William and Anne together. Many insiders reportedly viewed this alliance as the emergence of a new royal power structure. Princess Anne represented continuity with the old monarchy, strict, disciplined, emotionally restrained. Prince William represented the future, modern in appearance perhaps, but increasingly firm beneath the surface. Together, they allegedly formed a united front determined to prevent the palace from drifting into another era of blurred boundaries and private influence. Royal commentators began describing the situation as a symbolic turning point, not merely a dispute involving palace access, not simply tension surrounding Camilla's relatives, but a visible preview of how William may eventually rule as king, a monarchy with fewer emotional compromises. A monarchy where privilege requires visible service. A monarchy less willing to tolerate unofficial circles operating near royal authority. Princess Catherine was also reportedly supportive of stronger institutional boundaries. According to palace speculation, Catherine understood the emotional cost of public scrutiny better than most members of the family. Years of media pressure, personal attacks, and constant public observation allegedly convinced her that protecting the crown required stronger internal control. Sources claimed both William and Catherine increasingly viewed royal stability as dependent upon limiting unnecessary risk, even if those decisions appeared cold, even if they created discomfort within private family relationships. As whispers continued, spreading through aristocratic society, one conclusion seemed to gain momentum. Buckingham Palace was changing. The softer culture of emotional flexibility that once defined certain royal relationships appeared to be fading. In its place emerged a colder, more controlled environment, focused heavily on discipline, structure, and institutional survival. And according to insiders, Prince William intended to ensure that no future crisis would again threaten the monarchy from within. The deeper the situation unfolded behind palace walls, the more royal insiders reportedly began treating it as a warning sign about the monarchy's changing philosophy under Prince William's future leadership. What many initially dismissed as an uncomfortable family issue gradually evolved into something far more significant: a struggle over who truly belongs inside the machinery of royal authority. According to whispers circulating among palace staff and aristocratic circles, William allegedly viewed the entire controversy through one central principle: proximity to the crown should never be mistaken for ownership of it. That belief, insiders claim, shaped nearly every decision that followed. For decades, Buckingham Palace has operated under unwritten rules understood by courtiers, advisors, and senior royal figures alike. Access is carefully managed, influence is monitored quietly, and family relationships, regardless of emotional closeness, are expected to remain separate from constitutional power. Queen Elizabeth II reportedly guarded those boundaries throughout her reign with extraordinary discipline. According to palace speculation, William increasingly sees